Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Harris. With me is Pat Fitzmaurice to recap everything that went on in an exciting Week 16. I will say sorry if you're here with us live on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/fantasypros, for us being a few minutes late. You can blame me. You can really blame our producer, Chris, who's the best person ever if he's listening to this. Pat, anyway, how are you? How was your Week 16?
Good, Dan. The dream died in the Scott Fish Bowl. That was kind of expected, but I've got a couple. The big one is my home dynasty league, a best ball dynasty league. Have had a crazy game. I'm sure it'll come up in the course of talking about our games because I've had some blows that I've suffered. The James Robinson Achilles was a tough one, but and going against T. Higgins, not the best day to do that, as some of our friends in the chat, I'm sure, are aware. So yeah, it's been a mixed bag, but it was definitely an entertaining day.
I will say we were talking beforehand that I had multiple leagues right now where just the Thursday and Saturday games did not go well, only to have today go extraordinarily well to the point where it completely reversed everything that was going on. And I do want to ask you before we get into it, Pat, because we are analysts, because we provide rankings, and I used to talk about this with tags all the time. How much do you still care about your own leagues versus, because tags used to say, even though I know he was full of it, that he's like, oh, I don't really care about my own leagues anymore. It's all about my rankings and stuff. Today was a day, Pat, where I lamented my many wrong calls, but I was also very into my own leagues for really the first time, I feel like, this season, where I was living and dying with every single score.
Yeah, I still care. Maybe there are some of the industry ones. I'm just in so many that maybe I'm a little bit more numb to the results, and some of those, good or bad. And but the home league ones still matter a lot, with the friends that you've known for 20 plus years. And yeah, I mean, like this home dynasty league I'm in, which also comes with an attractive WWE style championship belt. And so I want to be able to carry that around on my shoulder in the presence of my friends over the next year. So this one means a lot. Yeah, I'm definitely not totally numb as an analyst to the joys of winning a home league.
Well, shout out to avid listener Ryan, who also happens to be my wife's cousin, who I can say my cousin now, basically. I've been married into this family for quite a while, who I saw yesterday at Christmas, who is moving on to the finals of our home league. So congratulations, Ryan. I may be rooting for you unless you're going against Aaron's brother, in which case I am contractually obligated to root against you. Anyway, there's plenty of stuff to recap, Pat. Let's get into it. A couple of housekeeping items. If you want to hear more of my thoughts, please subscribe to the Kickoff Podcast. That is a podcast that I do every single weekday. Solo, 10 to 15 minutes. I record it overnight, drops first thing in the morning. Quick hitting fantasy analysis available wherever you listen to podcasts. And leave a review. It definitely helps us grow. Also, to get more advice, come over and join our Discord over at fantasypros.com/chat. It is free. They have a few general channels, obviously, for anybody. But if you are a Fantasy Pros subscriber, a premium subscriber, then you get access to a litany of channels. You can also DM me privately, which I realized today, Pat, because I was doing the YouTube show from 11 o'clock, Yates's show at noon, and I did the BP live stream as well. I checked my Discord and I had like 7,000 DMs, like people messaging me right before. I apologize. You can blame Yates for traveling on Christmas. But again, fantasypros.com/chat. Pat, you know where we begin every single podcast. It's trust or bust. Are you ready to get into it?
Let's do it, Dan.
Usual rhetorical question, Pat. I didn't need an answer, but that's fine. Rex Burkhead, trust or bust, 22 carries, 149 yards, and 2 touchdowns. David Johnson was out for this game, but at least 15 touches in 3 straight games. They've got the 49ers next. So what do you think here, Pat? Big game for Rex Burkhead. People going into their championships. Trust or bust?
Tentative trust. Even if David Johnson comes back, I think this is kind of Rex's show now, which is interesting. And the 49ers, a difficult matchup, not a skull and crossbones matchup. I think it's playable. So trust if you're really up a creek at running back, and a lot of people are. I'm sure the vast majority of teams that get into their championship games and have Rex Burkhead on the roster probably are not in a position where they have to consider him. But I think you trust him if you're playing in a deep league where you maybe have to fill up 10 or 11 lineup spots, or if you're in a 16-teamer And Rex just happens to be the guy. I think you can flex him with some degree of confidence.
I'm sure people listening are being like, give me a break, Rex Burkhead. Okay, you're in the championships, doesn't matter. We play Fantasy Pros League. Okay, we have an internal league. It's 14 teams. I was dominant all year long. Depending on what happens with Dak Prescott tonight, my guy Quinn may knock me out. But if I lose, it will be because I chose to start, I think it was Marvin Jones after Mike Williams was out, over Rex Burkhead in the flex. And so next week, if I advance, Rex Burkhead's probably going to be in my starting lineup, at least so long as you trust him, Pat, which apparently you do. Let's go on to number 2, trust or bust, and it's Isaiah McKenzie. 12 targets, 11 catches, 126 yards, and the touchdown. Obviously, Cole Beasley was out. Obviously, Gabriel Davis was out. I don't know if they can come back next week. I'm not sure of exactly how long it is. Gabriel Davis may already be out. Sorry if I missed it. It's been Christmas. But at the very least, they're questionable for next week against Atlanta. We thought it would be Emmanuel Sanders. It wasn't. It was McKenzie. So Isaiah McKenzie, let's assume that Beasley and Gabriel Davis are out. Pat, trust or bust?
If they are out, I have a feeling, Dan, I'm going to rank him in the probably the 50s, the low 50s. So does that count as trust? Probably not. Huh?
No, it's bust.
Yeah, I mean, I really thought this game was going to resuscitate Emmanuel Sanders, and it didn't happen. And we saw Dawson Knox very quiet until the very end with that, late touchdown, underhanded shot from Josh Allen. But yeah, so I mean, he basically was the proxy Cole Beasley, and maybe, I don't know, maybe that's too low, Dan. Maybe I should trust him. I'm kind of on the fence here. Pretty good matchup against the Falcons. I mean, Josh Allen, again, they just barely kind of paid lip service to the running game. You're shaking your head. You think you can't trust him going forward?
I don't know if you can or you can't, but I won't, right? There's no way, Pat, when we do our start sit on Sunday and we talk about the pivot person, and if it's McKenzie, I'm going to feel okay about saying sit, and I'm going to feel okay. There are guys who I'm willing to sort of die on a hill for, right? There are guys who say, I don't feel great about it, but Jeff Wilson's always the guy who I say, okay, I can at least see that. This is just too fluky for me, Pat. There's no way that I can say, okay, I feel comfortable that this is going to happen again. That, for me, it's a bust.
And it is a little gadgety. He's fast, but he's a low ADOT guy. I mean, there's not a lot of splash play potential despite the speed. I'm just kind of skeptical too.
Yeah, you can admit it, Pat. Not everybody has to be a trust. You could say, bust, get this guy away from me. I don't want him anywhere near my lineups. Go for it. But we'll talk about him about waiver wire, I'm sure. All right, let's get to I'm confused by your opinion, sir. Now, again, rest of season rankings at this point, we throw them out the window. So I am just trying to find something. And as I told you, Pat, your rankings were gold, I think. Anyway, I'm very interested to see where you came out, because every time I looked and compared our rankings, you were on the correct side of every call. So I loved it. But let's talk about Odell, who you are perpetually fading. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And here it didn't really work, or in between, I guess. 8 targets, 4 catches, 37 yards. He does have the touchdown. He's got a touchdown now, Pat, in 4 or 5 games, and you ranked him 36. So that is somebody who is always lower than generally the consensus of where people are ranking him. So I will say that I am confused by your opinion on Odell Beckham Jr., Pat.
I don't really trust Odell that much, Dan, and maybe I should, because he has been a steady touchdown scorer for the Rams ever since his arrival. And I have sort of overfaded him, and maybe now it's a mistake to perennially have him in the rankings ahead of Van Jefferson, as I have been doing consistently since OBJ came aboard. So I'm going to have to change that. But I mean, today, the only thing that kind of mattered was Cooper Kupp clicking once again with Matthew Stafford. Just kind of a weird day. Beckham did get the touchdown deodorants, as our friend Scott Pianowski would say. And there was a lot of that going around this week, which we'll talk more about. But so, yeah, it did work if you were an OBJ investor. But I never feel totally confident in him, Dan. I don't feel confident in him as a volume play, for one thing.
Yeah.
We just don't know he's getting the target volume. But Stafford does like looking his way in the end zone. So something to be said for that, I guess.
Yeah, he has touchdowns other than, last week where he was just dreadful anyway. He does generally score the touchdown. So for me, when you're at that range, I feel like, Pat, I'm always like 29 on OBJ and you're always like 36 or something like that. I'm willing to, trust him just a little bit more than you, but
Sure.
there are very few times where I can say, hey, Pat, I felt like I was on this guy and that was more correct than you. So I'm just trying to grasp at straws for whatever I can do. So I apologize. All right, Pat, let's get into the games. Let's start with yesterday, if that's okay, Christmas Day. And let's start with your team, the Packers, 24, Browns 22. Aaron Rodgers throws for just 202 yards, but he does throw 3 touchdown passes. 2, of course, to Devontae Adams, 13 targets, 10 catches, 114 yards. And with no Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Pat, Allen Lazard does come through, 5 targets, 2 catches for 45 yards with the touchdown. He has the 13-yard run. Let's assume that MVS is out next week against the Vikings, Pat. Would you be willing to start Allen Lazard?
I would. I started him in my Scott Fishbowl lineup, and he was one of the few guys besides Patrick Mahomes who actually came through. I think he would be a top 30 probably wide receiver if MVS isn't there, against a Viking secondary that's been pretty vulnerable to wide receivers most of the season. It just a very concentrated target tree if MVS is out. Like, they have not been going to Equinemius St. Brown or Juwan Winfrey very much. The tight ends aren't, they're maybe chain movers, but they're not really dangerous downfield threats by any means. So we saw Adams just peppered, and we saw 7 targets, I think, for Lazard. So I think 7's a pretty good over-under for him again on targets if MVS is out.
With the running backs, Pat, Aaron Jones, 12 for 66 on the ground, has 6 targets, catches 5 of them for 21 yards in the passing game. A.J. Dillon, 9 carries for 41 yards, plus he has 3 catches for 15 yards. What are your thoughts overall on both of them next week?
Yeah, high-end running back 2 for Jones, maybe high-end running back 3 for Dillon. It just, they're both playable, but they obviously are limiting each other's upside. It's gotten to the point where it's been pretty consistent now. It's starting to fall into that Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon pattern where it's becoming very close to a true 50-50. It's nice at least that they're both being used in the passing game. Like, there's sort of no difference in their roles as far as one being taken off on passing downs or whatever. They're comfortable playing each guy in any down and distance situation, which is a good thing for Dillon. Like, he's not being pigeonholed as an early down back. So I think he's still playable, even though I'm a little more confident in Jones.
For the Browns, Nick Chubb, just fantastic. Started right out of the gate, by the way, as somebody going against him legit went to the bathroom for a second, came back out, and my matchup was almost over there. 17 for 126 on the ground with the touchdown. Let's add 3 catches for 58 yards just for fun. But Baker Mayfield, 222 with 2 touchdowns, but he also throws 4 interceptions. The touchdowns go to Anthony Schwartz and Harrison Bryant. Jarvis Landry, 4 catches, 55 yards. DPJ, oh my gosh, 6 targets, a catch, 5 yards, and another just horrific drop for Peoples-Jones. Is there any reason to roster anyone on the Browns other than Nick Chubb?
Nope, it's just Chubb. And he was marvelous, just single-handedly destroying the Packers defense. Like, a defense that had played pretty good for the most part against running backs for quite a while, and Chubb just made them look bad. And really, Dan, I mean, the Browns should have won this game by about 10 points. If not for Baker Mayfield not being good.
Correct. Yeah. Terrible, really. So yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I feel like I'm always debating the Jarvis Landry, right? Like, I'm like, well, I don't know. He's kind of there if you need somebody, but we are in the finals. You should not be relying on Jarvis Landry at this point. So I'm in agreement with you, but man, Chubb looked fantastic, and I hope he carried a lot of managers into the championship other than the ones I went against. All right, before we keep going, Pat, I do want to talk briefly about Tick Pick. I am taking Will, hopefully, if the NBA season goes off without a hitch, still going forward. I'm taking him to his first ever basketball game, the Celtics versus the Pelicans on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I'm going with his grandfather and him, a nice little present for him for the holiday seasons. And I got my tickets on Tick Pick. Why did I do it? Well, there are a few reasons. Number one, you're not going to find a better price anywhere else. They guarantee you the best prices that you can find. If you find a better price on any other site, they are going to give you 110% of the total purchase price. Why are they able to guarantee you such a good price? It's because they do not charge service fees. You go to these other ticket places, you look for tickets, it says, oh, your tickets are $50. In the end, you go to checkout, and it's really like $90 because of the service fees. No service fees have saved their users over $55 million throughout. And what's even better now, they have teamed up with Zip. That allows you to buy now but pay later for all your tickets. Just choose Zip at checkout, and you can split your ticket purchase into 4 installments. Download the TickPick app. Use the code PROS for $10 off your first order when you select Zip at checkout. That is what I did when I bought my tickets. Again, code PROS, $10 off your first order when you download the TickPick app and select Zip at checkout. All right, Pat, let's get to the second game from yesterday. Colts 22, Cardinals 16. Jonathan Taylor, 27 carries, 108 yards. He had that early 43-yard run and then kind of quiet other than that. Carson Wentz throws for 225 and 2 touchdowns, 1 to T.Y. Hilton, 1 to Desmond Patton, of course, who everybody was starting. Michael Pittman Jr., 12 targets, 8 catches, 82 yards, plus a 3-yard run. I don't really know if there's much to say here. Pat, you're obviously starting Taylor. You're obviously starting Pittman against the Raiders, and that's kind of it, right?
Yeah, I think so. Not enough volume for you to really start Wentz with any confidence. And it's amazing, as run heavy as the Colts have been lately, that you can still confidently start Pittman, but he is just an alpha target hog. Like, he is getting close to a 30% target share in a lot of these games. And, that's good because a lot of times they're throwing 25 times a game, and Pittman is getting like 8 targets and still making it all work. So, he's been really good, and he earns the hard yardage. I mean, that dude he is the quintessential physical receiver. It's kind of fun to watch him sometimes play.
All right, for people watching us live on our video, I'm going to pause for a second, and perhaps John, our producer, is not going to pause because my Ethernet cord has just come unplugged, and I don't want to lose our connection. So you're going to see me disappear for 1 second and then back. I am nothing if not a professional. I need to make sure that we're plugged in. Hang out there. Pat, you don't even have to talk. If you're watching live, this is just, whatever. This is how we do things. Hold on.
Wow, I don't get to do play-by-play on Dan doing this while he's out. This is amazing. Technical difficulties. Dan is a true pro, though. He'll get it done. Oh, here he is.
A real professional would have done play-by-play, Pat, and I heard that entire thing. Don't think I got disconnected or anything like that. Thank you for joining us here behind the scenes at FantasyPros. This is my fault, okay? I don't know how that happened. But anyway, we keep going on. No need to worry. And I think my wife is a little worried because she heard the Ethernet cord dribbling around, even though she is trying to go to sleep. Okay, let's keep going, Pat. Let's get to the Cardinals. James Conner, Pat, was kind of a surprise inactive here, right? Like, we kind of thought he was going to go, so hopefully we were able to get him out. Chase Edmonds really comes through, though. 16 for 56 on the ground with the touchdown. 9 targets, 8 catches, 71 yards through the air. A lot of that in garbage time, but still, if Conner is back next week against Dallas, Pat, how do you see this backfield playing out?
I think it'll be a 50-50. And that kind of it was underscored by the fact that Edmonds had such a good game in Conner's absence, just as Conner was balling out while Edmonds was out. And, it's Conner by the goal line, so that's good. But I do think Edmonds might have a little bit of an edge between the 20s. And, it's still, I don't know. I think they can both make it work and both be valuable in sort of an Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon type of arrangement. But yeah, Conner is the designated touchdown scorer. It's hard to count him out at all, but it was good to see Edmonds look this good. I mean, we needed to build some trust in him again, I think, after not seeing him perform at a high level in a while.
Yeah, it was great to see. He looked fantastic, really.
did.
But the Arizona offense did not, Pat. And whether it's just a slump, whether it's the absence of DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, Kyler Murray, 245 with the touchdown to Antoine Wesley. He does rush for 74 yards, so he doesn't kill you in fantasy or anything like that. But just, it never looks comfortable. I mean, Zach Ertz sees 13 targets, catches 8 of them for 54 yards. Most of that was early, by the way. Christian Kirk, 8 targets, 7 catches, 48 yards, but that's mostly in garbage time at the end when the game's pretty much done. AJ Green catches just 1 pass for 33 yards. Do you feel okay starting Christian Kirk next week against Dallas?
I feel just okay and not any better about it than that. And he's not really a confident start anymore. AJ Green certainly isn't a confident start. In fact, the guy I don't want to start at all. I'm back to thinking AJ Green is toast after maybe thinking my burial earlier had been premature. Man, and Kyler, just like keep him in the pocket. That's how you win. Keep Kyler in the pocket because he cannot yet do consistent damage from the pocket. Don't let him out of the pocket because he can have an explosive run. Oh man, is he fast? And just barely tracked down at the 1 or 2 yard line on that long run. Man, this passing game's broken right now, Dan, for the most part. Other than the little short stuff to Edmonds and Ertz, it just isn't working.
Yeah, well, they're going to need points next week, so hopefully that opens it up just a little bit. Let's get to today's games. Let's start with the Falcons 20 and the Lions 16. For the Lions, no DeAndre Swift. I wasn't sure how the split would be, Pat, and I always find it a little tough when I'm on from like 11 to 1 to try to figure out what's going on. I thought it might be Reynolds, but it was Williams, who has 19 carries for 77 yards. Reynolds, 14 touches, 51 yards, doesn't absolutely kill you. If Swift is out next week, are you willing to start either one of these guys against Seattle?
I'm maybe Williams as a flex type play. I mean, they did show us today that they prefer him. That having just signed him, I guess they still see him as the number 2 guy, and they're not willing to, I don't know, for the sake of an audition, bump Reynolds ahead of him. And I was kind of confused by it too, Dan. I had Williams and Reynolds ranked adjacent to each other because I wasn't sure how it was going to pan out. Thought it might be a 50-50, but it wasn't. It was really more Williams' show, and Reynolds just playing a backup role. So as conservative as they are, though, and Seattle does not have a good run D, like I think he's playable under certain circumstances.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're talking about Rex Burkhead, man. It's okay. We could talk about this. You might be in a situation where you need to even in your championship. Meanwhile, Timbo throws for 187 with the touchdown and a pick. The touchdown does go to Amon-Ra St. Brown, Pat, which is so great that he was able to still come through for fantasy managers who had to start him and were probably trying to get off him. 11 targets, 9 catches, 91 yards, and a touchdown. Just kind of an absolute, like, locked in your lineup starter at this point, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown?
He really is, yeah. And, I don't want to let our colleague Kyle Yates get a big head, but Yates was really on him before the season, and hat tip to Yates. Like, his guy is coming through and just balling out late in the season.
When everybody needs him, absolutely. For the Falcons, I mean, Cordero Patterson scored that early touchdown, Pat. I know you were aggressive in your ranking of him this week. I saw 7 for 14 yards, 1 catch, -1 yard. Man, I mean, thank God for the touchdown, as sort of you mentioned, but at Buffalo, Pat, do you really want to start Cordero Patterson at this point?
Oh man, it's going to be hard, Dan. Like we heard Arthur Smith say 2 weeks ago, like talk about workload management with Cordero, and we're kind of seeing it now. And this non-involvement in the passing game is the worst part of it. Like, this is Cordero Patterson. If you're not going to throw to him and just use him as a pure runner, it's the chances of it working out. You need that touchdown deodorant. And we've been getting it with him, but man, like, you do not want to have to rely on that, especially against Buffalo, where you're not going to see many positive game scripts. So who knows how many running attempts they're going to have.
I mean, you can run against Buffalo, right? Like, we've seen it, obviously, but I don't know.
Now he like splits carries with Mike Davis. So it's just, the workload is much, much less attractive than it used to be.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm sure we'll rank him as a starter in the sense of like but it will be an uninspired recommendation, right?
Yeah, he's not going to be in the top 10 anymore. And I don't know if he's going to be in the top 15 at running back. It's probably going to be somewhere around running back 18, 19, 20.
Yeah. I was thinking, I basically was about to say probably like roughly top 20, but again, not somebody who you're running out of your way to start. Matt Ryan throws for 215 and a score. That goes to Hayden Hurst. Kyle Pitts, another positive game, just no touchdown, 6 catches, 102 yards, continues to pile up the yardage, comes through here for fantasy managers. How about Russell Gage, Pat? 5 targets, 4 catches, 39 yards. He also loses that fumble that almost cost them the game. Are you going to start him against Buffalo?
Not against Buffalo, not against that pass defense. It's been too good. He had just inched in within the borders of the circle of trust. We lowered the drawbridge to let him across the moat, but we're going to have to throw him back out, I think, for this last week.
I'm inclined to agree. I would like to see the number of teams that won this week and the percentage of those teams that had on their team at least one Bengal, because I have to imagine it is an incredibly high percentage, because this is a team that just came through for their fantasy managers up and down the lineup. 41, Ravens 21. Joe Burrow was spectacular, 37 for 46 for 525 yards and 4 touchdowns. He had a fifth one that looked like it was there, and then it was overturned. T. Higgins, absolutely incredible. 13 targets, 12 catches, 194 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Jamar Chase, awesome. 10 targets, 7 catches, 125 yards. Tyler Boyd has the long catch, 3 catches, 85 yards with the touchdown. Joe Mixon, 24 touches, 135 total yards, and 2 touchdowns. They've got the Chiefs up next. I don't even know what to say, Pat. Just start everyone and people stop asking us start-sit questions about them, or what?
Yeah, I think so. So Burrow in 2 games against the Ravens this year, 941 yards and 7 touchdowns. Not bad. I wonder if Baltimore is going to be geared up for those Bengals games next year, especially with John Harbaugh a little upset apparently about the Bengals throwing late in the game.
They kept throwing.
Yeah, the guy who ran the ball instead of kneeling it a while back. So not going to be a lot of tears for him, I don't think. Yeah, I think we've talked about this, Dan, where, I don't know, like T. Higgins had this weird power of invisibility where people would give us start-sit questions with guys, T. Higgins, or guys who are nowhere near T. Higgins' plane of existence. You know, T. Higgins or MVS. Like, T. Higgins is a star. He is an absolute star. You know, and it's going to be interesting to see how some people won't be comfortable drafting either Chase or T. Higgins with them being on the same team and siphoning targets from each other next year. I don't really care. Like, I want a stake in both of these guys next year. They're both awesome, and Burrow is awesome enough to support them. But we should say, Dan, this Ravens pass defense, I mean, starting this season, like, I feel for Ravens and their fans. Like, they start with this great cornerback duo, Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey. And then Marcus Peters tears his ACL on the eve of the season. Well, actually, on the eve the season started, day of. And now Marlon Humphrey torn pec, and he's out for the season. And this defensive backfield is just completely helpless. And I mean, like, some of the Tyler Boyd touchdown, like, he was running wide open. That was
nobody around him.
Yeah, no one within 20, 25 yards of Tyler Boyd. So this is a helpless secondary right now. And man, did the Bengals feast today.
And they had no mercy whatsoever. For the Ravens, no Lamar Jackson, no Tyler Huntley. So it's Josh Johnson, who was in the offense for 6 seconds before he had to jump in there. He's fine, 28 of 40, 2 touchdowns. He does throw the pick. The touchdown goes to Mark Andrews, who is immune to everything. 8 catches, 125 yards with the touchdown. Rashad Bateman also catches the touchdown, 4 for 26. Hollywood Brown, 9 targets, 5 catches, 44 yards. I know it's a backup QB, but 37, 51, 55, 41, 43, now 44 yards over his last 6 games, Pat. Regardless of the quarterback, are you going to start Brown next week against the Rams?
I would only start him if Lamar Jackson came back, because under these other quarterbacks, he has become a short area receiver. And that transition might have even started with Lamar. So I'd have to go back and take a closer look. But it's weird that he has gone from this home run hitter, deep ball, high ADOTs, average depth of target guy to a guy who operates like Jarvis Landry when he was with the Dolphins a while ago, where he is catching all these passes near the line of scrimmage and, maybe he can make a move on someone to get a first down. But it's just not a real attractive package anymore. Like, early season Marquise Brown was exciting and a guy who could maybe give you 20 fantasy points any week. This Marquise Brown is really not that guy anymore.
Yeah, I agree with you. Meanwhile, Devontae Freeman, he gets the touchdown, but he runs for just 17 yards. Latavius Murray, just 12 yards. Are we just benching both now next week, especially against the Rams?
Yep. We had the running back 2 rug pulled out from us abruptly with Devonta Freeman.
Yep. Yeah. I was really excited about him 2 weeks ago, and now I'm just like, oh my God, please avoid him no matter what you have to do, especially against the Rams. All right, before we keep going, look, we've got to find a way to keep fantasy interesting right now. We know that, considering not that many of you are left and playing for something. Although if you are here watching us or listening to us, hopefully you are, or you're just big fans. Thank you very much. The way to do that, though, is with Prize Picks. Pick 2 to 5 players, decide if they're going to go over or under their stat projection. And again, stat projection is whatever you want it to be. It can be yards, receptions, touchdowns, fantasy points if you want, whatever. And the more players you pick, the more money you win, up to 10 times your amount. You can do multi-sport entries. You can do will LeBron James go over his point total? Will Patrick Mahomes go over his receiving yards total? 4.8 rating in the App Store. You can make your entries in less than a minute. Take your game to a new level with Prize Picks Daily Fantasy Simplified. Use our promo code GRIDIRON to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Again, promo code GRIDIRON to receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. All right, Pat, Rams 30, Vikings 23. Matthew Stafford, kind of a weird game. Pat, 21 of 37 for 197 yards with the touchdown, but he throws 3 picks. Cooper Kupp, as you mentioned early on in the show, 13 targets, 10 catches, 109 yards. We already talked about Odell Beckham Jr. Tyler Higbee, 5 for 41. But Van Jefferson, Pat, you alluded to him, 6 targets, 1 catch, 6 yards. Last 2 games, 3 catches, 29 yards total. It's Baltimore, Pat. So, like, yay, Baltimore. Can you start him next week against Baltimore?
Yes, you can,
Okay.
I think. This was just a weirdly off game for the Rams, out of sync. I kind of think that they adjusted with the play calling a little bit, where McVay just kind of, I think he realized it wasn't Stafford's day. And we saw Sony Michel get a huge workload as a result. And the defense everything was going so well except the passing game. I'm sure the defense was like, Matthew, would you mind just not setting them up with interceptions inside our own 20-yard line? Like, that was kind of the only thing that went wrong for the Rams all day. And
Okay.
Weirdly off game, but I'm willing to jump right back on the horse against the Ravens next week.
It's very hard to sit any wide receiver against
Yep.
the Ravens. Meanwhile, Darrell Henderson, he gets hurt here, and we'll see whether or not he's even available next week. But I really don't think it matters. It was Sony Michel's show right from the start. 27 carries, 131 yards with the touchdown. You had him 15th this week, Pat. Let's assume Henderson is out. Where do you think you'll rank him next week?
Probably top 10. Even though the Ravens are a tough defense, this workload, it's a running back 1 workload. Top 12 at the outermost limits, Dan, and I almost feel bad that I didn't rank him higher. And Sony Michel, a guy everyone thought was cooked like a year ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing how running backs can just the ebb and flow at the running back position. I mean, like, before the season, a Todd Gurley comeback would have seemed just as,
Yeah.
like maybe less improbable than a Sony Michel return to glory.
Yeah.
So it's remarkable, but yes, Sony Michel is an immensely valuable player here in championship week of the year 2021.
I agree completely. And look, you're lamenting your ranking. I was lower than that because I did not know how much Henderson would factor in. So I tried to play it a little safe. That did not work out. Meanwhile, Alexander Madison for the Vikings, 13 carries, 41 yards with the touchdown, 3 catches for 29 yards through the air. Pat, it's been Christmas, so sorry if I don't have all the details set, but I don't think we know for sure whether Dalvin Cook is going to be out next week against Green Bay because of the COVID-19 status. But let's assume he is. Madison would just be an RB1 for you, right? Against
He would be
Okay.
still. I mean, it didn't work that well today, aside from the touchdown, but yeah, he would be. And I think we've heard Dalvin is unvaxxed, so it depends, I guess. It's going to be probably kind of a close call whether he's
Right.
able to go next week. Like, if he gets cleared, it probably won't be until like Thursday, Friday at the earliest.
Yeah. Just what fantasy managers need, a little uncertainty heading into their championship week. Kirk Cousins throws for 315. Also a touchdown with the pick. The touchdown goes to KJ Osborne. That was with, Adam Thielen aggravated the ankle injury. Osborne has 5 catches, 68 yards. Justin Jefferson, quiet for a lot of the game until sort of the end, eventually gets going. 12 targets, 8 catches, 116 yards. I guess if Adam Thielen is forced to miss next week, would you be comfortable rolling out KJ Osborne?
I would be against the Packers because first of all, the Packers defense has not looked great the last couple of weeks. Their pass defense has been a little more flammable than it had been. And unless they get Jair Alexander back, but even then, Jair would be he'd be on Jefferson, and it would be Osborne going against probably Eric Stokes. So not really a matchup to fear there. Yeah, I'd be okay with starting him for sure. He was a good start when Thielen was out before, and I think he would be again.
All right, let's get to our next game, and that is the Bills 33, Patriots 21. Let's start with the Patriots. No Ramondre Stevenson, Damian Harris, 18 carries, 103 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jacksonville is up next. How would you feel about, let's do it both ways, Pat. How do you feel about Harris if Stevenson is out? And then how would you feel generally about both running backs, you think, if Stevenson is in?
I would feel really good about Harris if Stevenson is out. And I think the Stevenson thing should have worked solo against the Colts, and the Colts were just a much better run defense than the Bills. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think you want it with one of these guys or the other, and that is a slam dunk plug and play. I think if they're both going, you have to rate Harris higher, but I think Stevenson would still be like a running back. It would knock Harris down to running back 2 range, and I think Stevenson would still be like a mid-range RB3 consideration.
Yep. I'm in agreement with that. Mac Jones, meanwhile, throws for just 145 with 2 picks. Jacoby Myers, 6 for 59. Kendrick Bourne, 2 for 33. Hunter Henry, just 1 catch for 9 yards. Don't start anyone on the Pats other than the running backs. Is that fair?
I think so. Yeah. You'd have to be pretty desperate to play any of Myers, Henry, Bourne.
Yeah.
It's ugly. Yeah.
That's correct. That is the correct answer. Josh Allen throws for 314 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also rushes for 64 yards. Stephon Diggs, 13 targets, 7 catches, 85 yards with the score. Dawson Knox was quiet, but he does catch that late touchdown on that little flip that Allen does. And we already talked about Isaiah McKenzie. Let's instead talk about the running game here. Matt Breida, inactive in this one. Zach Moss gets just 4 touches here. Devin Singletary, 12 for 39 on the ground. Not that great or anything like that, but he does score the touchdown. And then he has 5 catches for 39 yards. Are you trusting Devin Singletary?
Flex level trust, Dan, against Atlanta next week. That's about all I can muster for them. They're just not that interested in running when they've got Josh Allen. Let Josh Allen create. That's the offense. It's not really about the running game. And, maybe if they pound Atlanta, we might see Singletary get 20 carries. But, this offense is about Josh Allen. And by the way, a lot of people were too low on him, and some people were asking me if they should still start him. Don't ever bench Josh Allen. Come on.
Yeah. No, I got that too. I was low on him, I think, compared to you, Pat. This is one of the ones, I was saying, because I have all the analyst rankings, so I can look and see where we are when I prepare the show. And yeah, I was apparently low on Allen. Well, I didn't mean to be. He was still a top 5 guy, but still, it was a little lower on him. But yeah, you start him. So we're talking about Devin Singletary, how we don't always want to start him. Let's go to a game where we just want to start everyone, and that's the Jaguars and the Jets. Jets 26, Jaguars 21. Start with the Jets here because I'm very sad about James Robinson, so I'll postpone that as long as possible. Michael Carter, 16 carries, 118 yards, 2 catches for 6 yards. Great game, Pat, but the Bucs are up next. And Tevin Coleman still factored in plenty. 15 touches, 61 yards. Are you going to recommend Michael Carter as a start against the Bucs next week?
Probably not. Probably not against the Bucs, just because he's not getting enough consistent usage in the passing game to make me want to recommend him as a guy who can overcome a tough run D. But boy, Carter does look great, though. He looks really quick, really good. You can see why he and Javonte Williams split carries at North Carolina. They're both really good. You can see why one never was able to get the clear upper hand over the other. So, but yeah, for next week, I don't think you can play him with any confidence.
There's no way. And I would love to because he does look great, but there's no way you're going to trust him in your finals. No. Meanwhile, Braxton Berrios runs a kickoff back for a touchdown, and Zach Wilson throws for 102 yards with a touchdown, and he rushes for 91 yards and a touchdown. Usual deal, avoid all pass catchers for the Jets, correct?
Yes, but that touchdown run was something else, Dan.
It
I mean,
was.
he looked like he was completely swallowed up by, the pass rush and was going to go down for a sack. All of a sudden, he emerges and just swerves like mad all the way into the end zone. It was crazy.
And at one point in that
Great run.
run, he sort of just looked like he was like done. It was like, oh, you're just out of bounds. Oh, you're still going. Oh, okay, I got it. Right, like that's really what it was when I was watching it. It was fun to watch. One of the rare fun moments for me as a Jets fan. For the Jaguars, Pat again, James Robinson tears his Achilles, so he's done. That's obviously a huge injury for a running back for long term, but we can talk about that another time. But it's Dare Ogunbowale, pardon me, with Carlos Hyde on injured reserve. 17 for 57 with the touchdown. He catches 2 passes for 15 yards. So it's against the Patriots next week. Pat, he's going to be the guy. Are you going to recommend starting him against the Patriots?
Oh, I have such a soft spot for Dare, Dan. I think he's the only NFL player who went to the same college and the same high school as me.
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, we're almost the same guy, except he's, younger, richer, and better looking. But
Very close.
so Dare was always kind of a pass catching back at Wisconsin. Like, I don't know what happens if you give it to Dare 20 times against a pretty good defense. I imagine it would be a pretty pass heavy game script for the Jaguars next week with Dare as the lead guy.
Yeah.
But man, if he's the sole guy there, I think he's going to have at least like running back 3 value next week.
Off the top of your head, ready? Dare or Michael Carter next week against the Bucs? I won't hold you to it.
Yeah, I think Dare. I think he's got more outs to cash in for you. I don't know. I prefer Dare, I think.
That is the correct answer, I think. Anyway, at least off the top of my head before I go through it. They are going to have to pass a lot, Pat. So Marvin Jones, 13 targets, 8 catches, 74 yards. Laquan Treadwell, 4 catches, 54 yards. James O'Shaughnessy, 4 catches, 49 yards. No Laviska Shenault, obviously, in this game. So you're not going to want to start any of the pass catchers, though, against the Patriots, right?
No. I mean, Marvin almost had a day for himself. Like, he kind of dropped one late in the game. Might have gotten him over the 100-yard mark, but took a hard shot. Probably should have hung on. Didn't. No, I don't think you're playing him. He hasn't done enough to warrant it.
Yep. Eagles 34, Giants 10. It looked really ugly for the Eagles for a while, but ultimately they cruised to an easy win. Miles Sanders, 48 total yards, and then leaves with a hand injury. I don't know the severity of it yet. Boston Scott, 12 for 41 on the ground with a touchdown. Jordan Howard, 9 for 37 on the ground. He adds 2 catches somehow for 19 yards. Washington next, Pat. I will spoil it and tell you that Washington is getting boat raced in this game right now against the Cowboys. So if Sanders is out, would you go, do you think, with either Boston Scott or Jordan Howard in that game?
So I guess I think Jordan Howard suffered a stinger himself. So
is that what it was? All right, I missed it.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. So, but I mean, he's probably going to be back. Most likely, that's not a longer term injury. So I would go with both of these guys. Actually, we've seen the pecking order as sort of Sanders, Howard, Scott, and Gainwell. And with Sanders out and a broken hand, he's probably going to be out. I think both Howard and
did they determine it was a broken hand?
I think I saw that it was fractured. I'm not totally sure about that, so don't take that as gospel.
That's fine. That's fine.
Someone on Twitter, I believe I saw a fractured hand.
Well, they a hand injury and they rule them out. You have to assume it's something, of a serious nature. So, yeah.
Right. All right. Yeah. So, and Howard, I mean, the target stand, that's an interesting, that's an interesting change up to see. And he actually looked good on the one catch. Remember seeing that, like, why don't they ever throw to him? Like, that looked smooth.
Right.
So, yeah, I think both of these guys would be pretty good plays next week. As much as Philly runs the ball, and just to reiterate that stat, like ever since week 8 or week 9, whenever they flip the switch, they have run 64% of the time, which is just insane for an NFL team in the 2020s.
Yeah, except Jalen Hurts rushes twice for 7 yards in this game, which was bizarro world, but he does throw for 199 and 2 touchdowns at least. One, of course, to Lane Johnson, who everybody was starting in their fantasy league. The other to Devontae Smith, very nice catch by him. 7 targets, 5 catches, 80 yards and a touchdown. How about Dallas Goedert? I mean, 4 targets, 2 catches, 28 yards. He did have a big one that was called back, obviously. Any concerns whatsoever with Goedert?
Not really, just because he had been used so heavily in the run up to this game. And I'll tell you, Dan, let me just interject a personal story. So I've got this, best ball dynasty team, and I've got Knox and Goddard as two of my other tight end is Everett, who wound up being the one usable guy out of that group. I think Knox and Goddard in the same within like 20 seconds of each other, both had touchdown catches overturned by penalties. I forget which one was the hold and which one was the illegal man downfield, but yes, both of them had touchdowns wiped out. That was not my finest moment of the day. But yeah, it was weird that Goddard was just used so sparingly. But then again, with the game script, with the Giants quickly having this one become not quickly, but eventually it did become a laugher, and it stayed a laugher in the second half.
Yeah, it definitely was closer than the final score indicates for most of the game, but then it definitely got out of hand at some point. Meanwhile, for the Giants, it's just all disgusting. Saquon Barkley, 16 touches for 28 yards. The Bears are next, Pat. Can you, in good conscience, recommend starting Saquon Barkley next week?
No, and I probably got to dip him even further than I have before, because now he's not even really getting workhorse duty, and it's just there are no prospects for a touchdown. Like, you're going to see the Giants with like an implied total of like 14 points when Vegas sets the line for this next game. And how can you not when it's just like Fromm and Glennon, and no matter who starts, one is deemed so bad that they have to bring in the other. Like,
Right.
it's operated both ways the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is just a gross offense, and I don't want to start anyone.
By the way, user One Rock, who is here with us, confirms that it is a fracture for Miles Sanders. So obviously we'll be out next week. Tough break, obviously, and I'm sure a lot of people started him in this one. So again, Jake Fromm and Mike Lennon are terrible. Kadarius Toney is your leading receiver with 28 yards. You're just avoiding everybody, right?
Yep.
Very good. Bucks 32, Panthers 6. It's actually a pretty disappointing day for everyone, and I feel like you could tell. I mean, not crazy, but pretty disappointing. And I felt like that was obvious. That was how it was going to turn out when Keyshawn Vaughn had the 55-yard touchdown run early on in the day. Ronald Jones comes through, though. I mean, if not inefficiently, perhaps 20 for 65 on the ground with a touchdown, 2 catches, 16 yards through the air. I mean, you obviously run to start him as fast as you possibly can against the Jets next week, right?
Oh my gosh, yes, Dan. And like, for the record, Ronald Jones in 4 starts last year when Leonard Fournette was out, I think his worst game rushing in any of those was like 80 yards and a touchdown. Yep. At least as far as the yardage. There were a couple games where he went over 100 and didn't have a touchdown, but like he's a smash play if Fournette's out. And even though he is a lousy pass catcher, he is bad at catching the football. They'll still try to throw to him because the dump off pass is just part of the Brady offense.
That's right.
At this point, not the Arians offense, Dan, the Brady offense.
Get the ball out before anybody can hurt me is basically what we call it, right?
Exactly. Yep. So, yeah, I mean, so he pays off, even though it wasn't the smash game you were hoping for. And Antonio Brown pays off. Yeah, it didn't happen for Gronk, though, and it didn't really happen for Brady.
Yeah. So you ranked Brown, speaking of that, Brady throws for 232 with the touchdown. It goes to Cameron Brate. You ranked Brown 10th this week, 15 targets, 10 catches, 101 yards. I assume that's basically around where he'll be next week.
Yeah. Like, I think he's still a wide receiver 1 with no Godwin and no Evans. Like, the targets are going to be there.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Cut you. No. All right. Any concerns with Gronk at all? 2 targets, 1 catch, 23 yards. That's on the heels of 11 targets, but 2 catches for 29 yards.
Yeah. No, like, the Saints thing was just, at that point, it was like any port in a storm, and Brady was just kind of flinging it up in Gronk's general direction. But I thought he would have a much better game today. It just didn't happen, but no, I'm not especially concerned next week. I would still start Gronk with total confidence.
Meanwhile, Sam Darnold and Cam Newton are really fighting with Jake Fromm and Mike Lennon to see which can be the most mediocre quarterback duo in the league. No touchdowns for the Panthers. Your leading non-quarterback rusher is Chuba Hubbard with 6 carries for 9 yards. DJ Moore does play through the hamstring, 11 targets, 5 catches, 55 yards. Again, the targets are there like they always are, Pat, but the production is not. The Saints are next. Are you still just kind of blindly starting DJ Moore?
No. Not with the Newton Darnold combo at quarterback. I'm really not, Dan. I mean, it's And I'm a huge DJ Moore fan, and I forget where I had him ranked. It was around wide receiver 30 this week. And
Yeah, you were fading him for sure compared to
yeah,
others. Yeah.
so we're seeing huge target inefficiency. He's got Robbie Andersonitis basically now, where he's getting 11 targets for 50 some yards. So
Yeah.
no, I can't start DJ confidently with those guys at quarterback.
Yeah, you had him 25th, Pat, which is appropriately fading. And nobody else, right? Robbie Anderson, 5 for 58,
No,
Shi Smith, 3 for
no,
86. No, you don't care, right?
no, nope.
Texans 41, Chargers 29. We already talked about Rex Burkhead. I don't know what else we talk about here with Brandon Cooks out. That's the only other guy that we ever talk about. Davis Mills throws for 254 and 2 touchdowns. One to Chris Conley, who has 3 for 60. One to Nico Collins, who has 3 for 33. Do we care about any of it from the Texans standpoint?
No, we don't. We like Davis Mills though, but it was an even distribution of the targets today. So I don't think we can lock on to any one guy if Brandon Cooks isn't around. Like Cooks is the only thing we can anchor our hopes at for the Texans. But man, Mills continues to be a guy we need to take seriously, maybe going into 2022.
He has looked much better than I ever expected him to look this early. For the Chargers, Justin Jackson probably won you your week if you were able to pick him up. 11 carries, 64 yards, 2 touchdowns. He adds 8 catches for 98 yards. We'll almost certainly see Austin Eckler back next week against Denver, so I'm not so sure what you want to say about Jackson, but we would be remiss if we didn't mention him here, given how big of a role he had. So I don't know, Pat, again, assuming Eckler comes back here. So not sure what you want to say about Jackson other than, yay, basically won you a week.
Right. That's it. A good backup, but you're going to be lucky if you get 10 touches out of him next week if Eckler is back.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we all loved Justin Herbert, 336 yards with the touchdown and 2 picks. The touchdown does go to Josh Palmer, 6 targets, 5 catches, 43 yards. Mike Williams should be out next week. I think we do probably know that. How do you feel then about Josh Palmer?
Pretty good. I mean, I felt good about him today and moved him into the top 30, and it didn't really happen for him other than that late touchdown, which was with 30 seconds left. So
right.
He kind of saved his day with that. I'd feel good about him if he's still the number 2, a little less so if he's the number 3. It was just weird that the Chargers didn't throw downfield much at all in the Texans. And I know that the Houston pass defense really isn't a joke. It's actually respectable. One of the few things the Texans do competently is play pass defense. But man, I mean, they're not that good. I don't know what was wrong with the Chargers today. For Keenan Allen to no show and for Palmer to just get the late touchdown and for everything to be dump offs to Justin Jackson, Jared Cook, Steven Anderson. It was just a weird offensive performance for the Chargers.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really saw it coming here. But again, if you had Jackson, thankfully he did kind of save your bacon. Bears 25, Seahawks 24. Dave Montgomery 21 for 45 on the ground with the touchdown. But again, 9 targets, 7 catches, 61 yards through the air. He continues to get it done there. Doesn't matter who's at quarterback. Khalil Herbert also scores a long rushing touchdown, just sort of in relief briefly. Nick Foles throws for 250 with the late touchdown to Jimmy Graham. Darnell Mooney, 5 for 57. Cole Kmet, 4 for 49. I don't know, Pat. Giants are next. Not sure what there is to discuss here about the Bears. Anything stick out to you?
No, that's it. I mean, a great running game matchup. So I think you're playing Montgomery again, and I think you're almost hoping that you get another sit for Justin Fields because of the way Foles was dumping the ball off.
Yeah.
Maybe that part of that was just a function of the weather, and it was the quick release stuff works better than sitting in the pocket with the pass rush coming, waiting for guys to get their footing and get 20 yards downfield. But yeah, I mean, Montgomery is just what a valuable workload this guy has. I mean, he's basically the new Matt Forte for the Bears now with the run catch, just consistently hammering out yardage pretty much week after week after week.
Yeah, such a high floor there. For the Seahawks, Rashad Penny comes back 17 for 135 with the touchdown. Must start option next week against Detroit, Pat.
I think he is. Yes, he's earned that. And yeah, thank you, Rashad Penny, for keeping me alive in this dynasty league. Things were looking bleak until that game.
I love it. Russell Wilson, meanwhile, throws for just 181 yards. He does throw the 2 touchdowns, though. Gerald Everett catches one of them, 4 catches, 68 yards. DK Metcalf, the other one, 2 for 41. Tyler Lockett, just 6 targets, 3 catches, 30 yards. We just start Lockett and DK Metcalf against the Lions still, right?
Oh, yeah, I guess we have to, but man, not with any sort of confidence at all. And maybe some teams, 10 team leagues, like you've got better options. Like I can see having both of these guys as back end wide receiver twos
Yeah.
this year. I mean, like it's just so weird the lack of chemistry between Russ and DK when they used to have great chemistry. And Russ doesn't look good. I mean,
I know.
And hard for me to say that. Russ is a Wisconsin guy. Like Russ has been a great NFL quarterback for a long time, but he does not look good. He doesn't have the escapability he once had. He doesn't have the pinpoint accuracy he once had. It's very strange. He is a diminished quarterback this year.
And he just kind of, his decision making seems off as well. Like he seems indecisive. Just everything about him looks rusty, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it. Chiefs 36, Steelers 20. Is that right? Did the Steelers 20 or did I write that score? I don't know. I may be wrong there. I don't know. Could be wrong on the score. Sorry about that. If so, I'll double check after that, or somebody in our chat tell us I may have had a typo. Anyway, Clyde Edwards-Helaire hurts his collarbone here. Apparently x-rays are negative, but I'll go for an MRI. I just have to think he's going to be out next week. But who knows? He does score the touchdown, obviously, before he goes. Darrell Williams, 88 total yards on 14 touches. Derek Gore does factor in. So assuming that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is out next week, where do you think Darrell Williams will rank for you against Cincinnati?
I think he'll be a running back 2 for me. And the reason I wouldn't consider him as a running back 1 is because we have been seeing Derek Gore do a lot, albeit mostly in garbage time. He is their designated garbage time back. But I think he's earned the trust by, crushing it in garbage time for a couple of weeks. So wouldn't be surprised to see more of a Darrell Williams, Derek Gore split against the Bengals. Not like an even split. I think Darrell Williams is still the guy you want to start, and Derek Gore is probably a guy you can't start. But, I just don't think I'm going to have that confidence that Darrell Williams is going to get, 20 to 25 touches.
Yeah, and I will say that it was 10 points for the Steelers, not 20. Sorry about that typo there. The touchdown, we'll talk about that, did go to Deontay Johnson. But let's talk about the passing game here first, because it was a little weird. Obviously, no Travis Kelce. So it's Byron Pringle, 7 targets, 6 catches, 75 yards with 2 touchdowns. Mecole Hardman, 31 yards with the touchdown. Tyreek Hill, very quiet, only 2 targets, catches both of them for 19 yards. Mahomes throws for 258 and 3. I don't know, man. Just kind of throw this out here. Weird game. They dominated and no Kelce.
Yeah. Dan, like our guy Tags, we used to go back and forth about Tyreek Hill a little bit, and Tags did not like him as much as I did. And I couldn't understand Tags' reluctance to buy into him. And it was just that, like, the floor games. He said there were just too many floor games where, like, it's a trap door and you just don't get anything from him. And we got one of those games here, and I got one of those games here because I needed him in the Scott Fish Bowl. I needed the Mahomes Hill combination to click. It's the conference finals, 10 teams, only 1 advances. Like I needed a monster Mahomes Hill game, and Mahomes kind of came through, but Tyreek did not. It was a rare spread the wealth team, or spread the wealth game for a team that does not spread the wealth, that has like one of the most concentrated target allotments you're going to see in the NFL. And all of a sudden today, they decided to use Mecole Hardman, Byron Pringle, Demarcus Robinson had a catch or 2. So it was a weird game.
Very bizarre. Meanwhile, for the Steelers, Najee Harris, doesn't matter how many they're down by, he'll get his volume, 19 for 93 on the ground, 5 catches for 17 yards through the air. So again, great to see him be so involved despite the score. Deontay Johnson does catch a late touchdown, 9 targets, 6 catches, 51 yards. He does lose the fumble. Chase Claypool, 4 catches, 41 yards. Big Ben throws for 159 with the touchdown and a pick and a fumble, and it's just disgusting, really, for the Steelers. Anything that you want to say here about the team?
That they need to redo everything on offense except for running back and Freiermuth, I guess, at tight end. Like, do we even feel like Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool are a great combo at receiver anymore? I mean, Chase is kind of a head case, and Deontay's got like this problem with concentration drops, and like
He looks disinterested. I don't know whether or not it's the like because the team is bad, but there are times where I look at him out there and I'm just like, you don't really look like you want to be on the field right now, like that sort of thing. So
yeah,
I mean, either way, they're going to have to break the whole thing down, right, Pat? I mean, they have no quarterback, obviously.
Yeah, Deontay's an interesting one. Does he get this many targets because he's good and earns targets, or because Chase Claypool is a knucklehead who Ben doesn't like to throw to, and James Washington and Ray McLeod aren't that good? Like, I don't know.
Well, he was getting it even with Juju there, though, right? Like he was still getting it with Juju
that's
there.
True.
So.
That's true.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think Deontay's bad, but I don't know. Like he does have these, and I try not to let drops bother me. But it's like there is a concentration thing there that seems like it's, maybe on the chronic side and not just a fleeting thing that's going to disappear like it did with Devontae Adams in his first couple of years in the league.
Yeah. Well, I also think they need to rebuild their entire offensive line. Of course, they got a lot of things they got to do.
Yes.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
That's why Najee Harris continuing to come through is so awesome.
And I don't think they're plotting for the return of Ben Roethlisberger in 2022.
That's the point,
either,
right? Exactly. He's probably gone. All right, Raiders 17, Broncos 13. Josh Jacobs 27 for 129, but he loses a fumble and he also loses the touchdown to Peyton Barber just when he needed a little bit of a break. You start him pretty much every time out, even against Indianapolis next week, right?
I think you have to. Just with Indianapolis, it's hard because they have a really good run defense, but Jacobs has caught. He's been involved as a pass catcher, which gives him a little bit of a floor. He's going to be a mid-range running back too.
Yep. Brian Edwards, meanwhile, placed on the COVID list right before game time. So Zay Jones and Deshaun Jackson go for 50 and 44 yards, respectively. Hunter Renfrow, though, 3 targets, catches all of them, 40 yards, does get the touchdown deodorant, as we say. But after that big string of games here, Pat, just 3 catches in each of the last 2 games, 32 and 40 yards, respectively. Is he still a must-start option for you?
I think he is. It's strange that the last 2 games have been really kind of a letdown after the 3 great games leading up to it. But I think you have to still keep rolling with him because he's just so important in this passing attack, which is basically nowhere near as good as it used to be without Darren Waller. I mean, we saw Derek Carr average 310 yards a game in games that Waller was playing, and now he's down to like 240 yards a game. It's like the Waller void has just been completely unfilled. And for a brief while, it seemed like Renfrow was kind of filling it, but that seems to have stopped. So I don't know what's going on with him. I still think he's a wide receiver to play, though.
I agree. For the Broncos, just a horrible day for the running backs. Javonte Williams, 7 carries, 12 yards. 2 catches for 8 yards. He does score a touchdown. Melvin Gordon has 8 touches and gets 0 yards. Do you think this was a product of Drew Lock being the quarterback or what?
I think it is because he couldn't pick up first downs and they ran 38 offensive plays.
Yeah.
38 offensive plays. That's the reason no one put up numbers. So, if you're a Javonte investor, I guess you're glad he got into the end zone because there was nothing else for anyone else. I mean, like, Judy had an okay week, and that was it. Some of us started Albert O in the Scott Fishbowl. That didn't work out so well.
Yep.
And bet on him over 18.5 yards. That didn't work out so well. Tough day for my guy Albert O.
Yeah, tough day really for everyone on the Broncos, other than Judy, 3 for 60, which is a great day if you're a Broncos receiver, I think. So does it matter who's a quarterback? Do you have any interest in anybody other than the running backs against the Chargers next week?
Maybe Noah Fant, because the Chargers give up points to tight ends. That's about it. And like, it's not going to be rushing to get Noah Fant in ahead of someone good. It might mean if you're out of answers at tight end and he's your only guy, you throw him in there and hold your nose.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for today's show. Thanks to TickPick. Remember, download the app, use the code PROS, get $10 off your first order when you select Zip at checkout. Thanks also to Prize Picks, Daily Fantasy Simplified. Use our promo code GRIDIRON to receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. If you are still listening, I hope that means you advanced or you're a glutton for punishment. Either way, thank you very much for listening. Keep listening to us. For the rest of the week, we'll be back, including me and Pat, next Sunday, wrapping up week 17, as well as pretty much the entire season.